It's wonderful to see so many of your faces again, and to imagine being back on Ellis Street with your students. But in the meantime, we're going to be seeing each other through screens and through the ether and communicating through the ether. And today, in addition to this informational session that we're doing with you, the parents of the class of 2024 and the parents of the class of 2023 a little bit later, we also had our first gathering of the whole professional community. Summer's over, and so we had our first gathering of the whole professional community. Welcomed a variety of wonderful new colleagues to the professional community at school, both educators and staff. And I want to share with you their awesome enthusiasm to be started, to get going, to start the school year even at a distance. And I think that just speaks really well to the kind of community that we have at JCHS, both the community that supports the school through parents sending their students to the school, and the community that exists within the school, students and educators working together, and their excitement, the excitement of our educators and our administrators and other staff was just palpable today, and I just wanted to share that with you. And I want to just go around and introduce to you briefly the others who are on this call and who will be answering questions. I want to thank you for submitting some great questions, and we're going to take our time and focus primarily on your most important questions and your second most important questions, and that will probably take up much of our time this afternoon. And if there's a question that you have that's burning inside of you that you don't feel that we've answered, or the answer we gave just doesn't land the way you expected or had hoped, or you have a question about a clarification, feel free to email any one of the three of us. So joining me on the call today are Michael Brody, our assistant head of school. And Michael, could you just say hello?
Right here. Nice to see you all, and excited to get to meet all of your students.
Great. And then our co-dean of students and the dean for the 9th grade class, Matz. Michelle?
Nice to see everybody. Welcome.
Yeah, wonderful. Great. And it is really great to see all of your faces. I guess I'll start by talking about the decision that the school made to begin in mode 4. That's the all distance mode. And one of the reasons that we made the decision, there's so many reasons that contributed to the decision: health and safety, the wellness of your students, what information we were getting from the San Francisco Department of Public Health and the health consultants that we are in conversation with, as well as the San Francisco Department of Public Health's rather explicit directive that we are not permitted to reopen schools. That permission likely, we hope, all of us hope, will change. But San Francisco Department of Public Health has been quite explicit about that over the course of the last 3 weeks. And we determined then that the most important thing for us to start the school year was to start it vigorously, enthusiastically, and wholeheartedly. And rather than be planning in our minds, are we going to start in person? Are we going to start online? We chose to put all of our effort into starting online as vigorously as possible. And still, there is no permission from the San Francisco Department of Public Health to open any schools, parochial, private, or independent, parochial, private, or public, rather, in San Francisco. And the question that was asked by many of you is, well, when will school reopen for in-person learning? When it is safe and we have permission to do so. Our objective is to have not only a wonderful school year filled with learning and growth and meaningful development for your students and for all the other students of the school, but also to keep everybody safe and healthy. And so when the permission is granted and we have everything we need in place, we would love to have students be on campus. It's most likely that when we do open on campus, we'll be at a reduced density. So that was our campus mode number 3 that we put information out about, that would permit us to have half the number of students on campus on any given day. And then to have students on campus, let's say in 9th grade, 1 week, the Olive Week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then off campus for the next 10 calendar days. And then in the week Bet, the second week, to have 11th and 12th grade on campus. And that's our campus mode number 3. Olive, we should get to, it should be, you know, within the reach of all of us that we get at some point in the current school year to have everybody on campus with no limitations on density. And that's our campus mode number 2. But in the meantime, we're just encouraging families to do everything they can to practice the same kinds of things that we will be practicing when we come onto campus in our reduced density mode, which is social distancing, wearing of masks, practicing good hand hygiene, and keeping yourselves healthy and safe. And when the time comes for us to be back on campus, we'll share with you all the protocols that we have put in place, the ways in which we've addressed density within the building, HVAC. I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. But our objective is to be with your students on Ellis Street as soon as we possibly can be, and we don't know when that is. So the most important thing for all of us to flex this year is our muscle of flexibility and adaptability. And we as adults have a real opportunity to help 9th graders, 10th graders, 11th graders, 12th graders grow in their resilience and their ability to respond to things that are unpredictable and beyond their control. I know you have a lot of experience with that already. They have a lot of experience with that over the last several months. And we're just going to keep flexing that muscle because that's what the pandemic requires of us. Again, our faculty's thrilled to be starting with your students. And let's start answering some of your other questions. And to begin taking a first group of questions, let's bring Michael on. Michael? You are muted, Michael.
Not anymore.
Yeah, great.
Hi. Well, thank you all for being here. So I'm going to take on some of the questions that are about the academic program. I want to start out just by talking about what our faculty all did this past summer to prepare for the school year. So over the summer, we partnered with the Global Online Academy, which is an online, it's not a full online high school, but it's more of, it was started at Lakeside Academy in Seattle, which is an independent school up there, and it spun out into its own entity. And it's a place where it's for independent school students and international school students from around the world, where you could go to take online classes, not a full online high school, but where you could take an enrichment class or a class that's something that your high school doesn't offer, that they offer there. And they've really, over the last decade, become, in the independent school world, real leaders in online education. So they also offer professional development for teachers who are going to want to learn about how to teach online. So we offered, they offer 4 classes in the summer, and all of our teachers took 3 or 4 of those classes. They were sort of classes in just designing for online learning, class in assessment in online classes. Teachers did classes in what's called wayfinding, which is how to design an online learning environment that students can find their way through. And classes in, did I say assessment? And a class in student agency, which is how to get students to sort of take responsibility and take ownership of their learning in online learning environments. So all of our teachers have done fairly large professional development commitment this summer to that. We also had teachers, I think we had, well, probably about 8 or 9 teachers also go become Google certified educators and pass. Google offers a certification in using the Google suite in education. And as we're moving all of our classes onto Google Classroom for next school year, we already had some teachers who were already using Google Classroom. Somebody's giving me a thumbs up. All right. So one Google Classroom fan in the house. All of the classes will be on to Google Classroom next year. So that is going to really help us keep things organized and help students have sort of fewer systems to navigate as they go through their classes. There are also one of the lessons we learned last year in the spring. Last spring, we went to like a lot of schools, we did away with grades last spring and went to a system that was sort of pass, high pass, and no pass for our classes that involved teachers writing and producing really detailed rubrics for students in terms to communicate to them the different levels of achievement and mastery they were expected to show. And building on that, especially in this online environment, we're going to be implementing rubrics like that across the board for all summative assessments in all classes. So that is also, I think, going to really help help students and teachers, as teachers articulate the criteria and learning goals and expectations in ways that are clearer than perhaps we have ever had done in the past in terms of being universal and across the board. Well, one of the many questions about, or a set of questions around how do parents keep track of what's going on with their students. Google Classroom, and maybe this is why I'm getting some thumbs up, makes that pretty easy to do. And you will be getting, within the first week or so of school, there'll be sort of a parent access code that you'll get where you can look in on your students' Google Classroom classes to see. You can't attend the classes, but you can see whether they turn their work in or not really easily. It makes it very easy to monitor that stuff and to help your student stay on track. And also another sort of set of questions on how are students going to be able to access their teachers in the online environment. And there are going to be several opportunities for that. One is that all of our teachers have periods during the day when they don't teach. So those are times when if your student happens to have the same study hall in the same block that a teacher is available, that's a time that's available to them to meet. Excuse me, teachers and students will also be able to meet after school from 3:30 to 4:30 would be a time when students and teachers can meet. During that time also, we'll be running a homework cafe that we're calling it, which is going to be sort of a drop-in Zoom call run by the Learning Support Department. As a place, it may not be your student's actual teacher, but there will be teachers there to help as they can. And Fridays are going to also, well, we'll only be running academic classes Mondays through Thursdays. Fridays, one of the big use of time on Fridays is for teachers to have blocks of office hours available, either as drop-ins or that students can sign up for in advance so that students have access to their teachers.
Great. Well, Michael, why don't we let you catch your breath?
Okay.
And let's open it up to some questions that came in for Michelle.
Great, thank you. Hi, everybody. There were quite a few questions about kids' social, emotional development and growth and how we will be meeting those needs, the social, emotional needs, when we can't actually all be together on Ellis Street. So I want to talk about what we are doing to address those questions, to address those issues rather. And I'm going to talk about kind of I'm going to talk about it in three parts. The first is our orientation. Our student life team has spent a great deal of time this summer putting together an orientation for the 9th graders over Zoom. And that orientation is going to be an orientation to the school, an orientation to the library, to our tech, to all of that, but also very much a time for the kids to get to know each other. There are going to be icebreakers, some of which are going to be, super goofy and fun. There are going to be conversations, many of which will be led by our senior buddies. The kids will be put in breakout rooms so they can get to know each other in smaller groups. There will be full group activities and conversations as well. So by the first day of school, your kids will have already had quite a few conversations with their peers. So that's the first part, is our orientation. We also this year are doing things a little bit differently, because this is going to be a year like no other. And so we have quite a bit planned around kids' social emotional development throughout the year. And the first thing we have is a try program, which is a bit new. We've certainly done things like this on our trips and our all school gatherings, but this year we've put the kids in small groups, probably 6 to 8 kids, and one faculty member will be the tribe leader of that group. And those groups are going to be meeting once a week. And that's another way for the kids to get to know each other through these facilitated conversations. Those tribes will, do some fun activities. They'll have some conversations. They'll be, as I said, connected with a faculty member who will be able to provide support and advice. So that's one of the things we're doing this year. We also have a pretty robust senior buddy program. Some years about half the seniors are in our senior buddy program. I'm not sure what the numbers are this year, but I'm guessing it's close to half. And the senior buddies are going to play a big part in our 9th grade orientation, but they're also there throughout the year to stay connected to the 9th graders. And typically the 9th graders have year-long relationships with these older kids who give advice and talk to the kids and just help them navigate to JCHS. Our Knesset, which is our student government, is also going to be doing quite a bit of programming, most of which will take place on Friday. And some of those will be, very spirited community building programs. We have something called Spirit Games. We have a coffee house, which is our talent show. So Knesset is going to be running quite a few programs this year. We are also having on Friday an all-school gathering. And I very much encourage you to encourage your children to attend those. And those are other ways for us to be building community, again, when we can't all actually be together. So those are some things. And as the year develops, we will, tweak and reevaluate and assess and, we will keep meeting the needs as the needs come up. There's also a couple ways we're going to be addressing the social emotional needs of kids on a more individual basis. So I'm the 9th and 10th grade dean, and as the 9th grade dean, I'm going to be checking in with each of your kids once a week, either just on the phone or over a Zoom meeting. Some of the details are still in the process of being worked out, but regardless, I will be checking in once a week with your students. We also have a school counselor, Julie Beck, who is available to meet one-on-one for confidential meetings with your kids. So those are a couple of the individual ways we'll also be meeting the social and emotional needs of your kids.
Great, thanks, Michelle, for sharing that. Michelle talked about Friday, so let me start there. And a number of you asked about, well, some of you asked about, oh, why do you have tefillah Monday through Thursday, but not on Friday? And there were some questions as to why aren't we having classes on Friday? So one of the ways we built this schedule was we are so committed to being back on Ellis Street that we built a schedule that will permit us to be back on Ellis Street in campus mode number 3, 2, or 1. And in order to do that, we tried to focus on what's called the 4-10 model. It's a model of managing COVID exposure, potential COVID exposure. that was first articulated by some researchers at the Weizmann Institute in Israel. And it is that a community should be together for 4 days, then away from each other at home for 10 days, and then back for 4 days, trying to take advantage of the latency of the presentation of COVID. And in order to do that, we needed to kind of have 1 day out of every 2 weeks that we wouldn't be having students on campus, we're only having them for 4 days. And we also know that Friday is a day in which we usually end early in fall and winter because of Shabbat. So Friday became then the target day that we decided we would do things virtually on Friday that we could do whether we're on campus or off campus. Friday, everybody is virtual. Also, some of you asked about, well, what are our plans for transportation? What are our plans for food service? So knowing how complicated, if you just imagine for a moment how complicated that becomes in a campus mode number 3, when half the students are on campus and half the students are off campus, we decided if we reduce the complexity by 20% by having Friday be a day in which we didn't have to worry about or deal with transportation or food service, it just made it that much more attractive to look at Friday differently. And then finally, before COVID, we were imagining we could build a school schedule in which there'd be one late rising day every week, so that students would have a day just with a different routine. And so by having Friday be the day in which we focus the faculty adult meetings in the morning, first thing in the morning, instead of having classes or even student group meetings first thing in the morning, we've created that as an opportunity. We know that the teen brain and teen sleep is just different than it is for others. And so we wanted to make sure that there was a 1 day each week that a student could have a different kind of a routine to start their day, to refresh themselves. Speaking of the difference in teens, there was also a question about, well, don't we know that the research shows that children don't transmit COVID? And while there's an open question as to whether that's true for young children, what the San Francisco Department of Public Health and the epidemiologists that we've been in conversation with, and things you can read online, suggest that COVID transmission and the impact of COVID in teens more echoes the adult experience of COVID than it does the children's or primary grades experience of COVID. And so we also tried to be mindful of that in our planning. All right, Michael, you want to take the next set of your questions?
Sure. The next questions for me are about the after-school programs, about sports and theater. So in terms of sports, in this fall, for this first quarter, we're offering 2 things. First, students can do an independent PE program. Well, first, let me step back. We really think it's important for all students to be doing some physical activity to be healthy. So whether students want to just do this on their own, if students want to just do this on their own, or your student likes to ride their bike or do whatever they do, great. Like, that's fantastic. If they need some help figuring out what to do, we are going to offer an online sort of PE type of class after school, 2 or 3 days a week. The final details are being worked out, where students can join in on Zoom and work out with other people, other JCHS students. And we have one of our boys volleyball coach is going to be running that for us. So that could be one option. Another, if the student also would like to get PE credit, so a student needs to do 3 seasons of physical activity to meet their graduation requirements. So that could be playing on a team, or if your student doesn't play a team sport, then they can do what we have, it's called independent PE. So if a student would like to ride their bike, hike, do yoga, whatever they do, then there is a slightly more formal process that students need to go through to have what they take their activity that they do and to get that to count in the independent PE program. And that involves really, in this case, probably having the parents sort of just verify, have a sort of a tracking sheet, and the parents can verify that the student did the workouts they did, and get to, I think, 50 hours over the, like what would the equivalent of a sports season. And when it comes to theater, obviously theater is such an important part of the JCHS experience for so many students. Unfortunately, we can't be together in the theater either, but we are working out the final details of offering in this first quarter some after-school theater workshops run by our theater teacher that would and the part of the purpose there, and also by our new theater technical directors. There'll be options for students who want to do some sort of theater tech learning, and some different sessions for students who want to learn more about acting in the theater. And if there's enough interest that could build towards, we are hoping that will build towards a winter show of some sort, whether that's a Zoom show or a podcast style show or something like that. But that so if your student is interested in the theater, they should, in the show that could happen in the winter, they should join in on these fall workshops. And we're also going to try to coordinate this. So if somebody wanted to do PE and the theater program, that it might be possible for them to do both and not have to choose in the fall. The question was 50 hours for the school year. No, for independent PE, it's 50 hours over half the school year. So that would be over like a semester to do 50 hours is the equivalent. Those are my next set of questions.
All right, great. Michelle?
Yes, I want to apologize for the noise that I could hear. I'm not sure if you could hear. I'm actually fostering some puppies from the SPCA, and they're in the next room with the door closed, but they're still very loud. So if you hear squealing, everything's okay. It's puppies. Okay. My next set of questions that I'm going to answer have to do with kids and study skills and time management. Do you hear those puppies? The ninth graders, you may have seen on your students' schedule, I'll take a class called Freshman Seminar. Some of your kids will be in that first quarter, first and third, some will be in second and fourth, but it's the same program regardless. And that class is taught by 3 of us, and one of those sections is taught by Yael Krieger, who's the director of teaching and learning. And she teaches, her course is about study skills, how to teach kids about time management, how to teach kids. And this is something that I also reinforce when I'm having my conversations with this kids one-on-one. But her course really deals with how to help kids be successful students in high school and beyond. So she talks about things like time management, how to know when it's time to reach out for a teacher for one-on-one help, how to actually compose that email to the teacher, how to plan a project that might be a long-term project, how to study for different types of tests, how to break down an essay so that you're doing it, in a timely way and aren't stuck the night before. So all of those questions that you guys sent about, study skills and time management, all of that will be addressed in this freshman seminar program, which I think we've been running now for maybe 10 years. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'm going to mute myself because of the puppies.
Okay, and I'll pick up from Michelle. Let me talk about numbers. There were a couple of questions about numbers. So one question about numbers was about the HVAC, the heating, ventilation, and cooling system at the school. So we're not on campus yet, but just so you know, we've looked rigorously at the HVAC system at school. We have filters at the recommended level. It's the number is 13 on the filters. Our filters are actually up on our roof, so we're taking in air from the outside up on the roof that isn't coming from any place that could be problematic. And we've shifted the entire HVAC system to 100% outside air, meaning that as air moves through the building and it's moved by our HVAC system, we are moving air in the building out, and we are moving air from the outside into the building at 100%. Now it's more costly in terms of heating the air and cooling the air because we're dealing with whatever the temperature is outside with that air when it first comes in. But that's how important it is to us to do that with the air. And then I know, sometimes we experience, I just want to, I'll be saying this in all of our conversations, sometimes we experience that we're in a room and we don't feel the air move. And so we're assuming that no air is moving. And in fact, the people who design HVAC systems and buildings design them so that you don't feel the air move. And so it creates, unfortunately, creates in all of us who sit in a room where we don't feel the air move, it creates in us a sense that the air is just sitting there, but that's actually not what is happening. So every one of our classrooms has an air intake, and air comes out of that room, and we're really confident about the degree to which we take out the air in the building throughout the day, but just kind of wanted to say that in terms of the numbers. Yeah, it's the filter level is a filter 13. Means nothing to me, but I just learned how to pronounce epidemiology a few months ago. Next, I will go for my degree in pronouncing all the terms relative to air filtration. Another thing about numbers that I want to share is that a couple of parents have asked, well, what will the school do if our family is still in financial extremis because of the pandemic? And I want you to know that our board is absolutely committed to ensuring that every student who is enrolled at JCHS can stay at JCHS. And we are committed to going out and raising money to make that possible. So if you are experiencing financial extremis, that all of it because of the pandemic is unpredictable for sure. But if you are, please reach out to our Director of Finance and Operations. When you were applying to JCHS, that person was Allison Brown. Allison has taken a position at a school after 8 wonderful years at JCHS. She took a position at a school much closer to home, and we were very fortunate to hire a great new Director of Finance and Operations, Larry Roadcap, and just reach out to me or to Larry, and I'll make sure that Larry gets in touch with you, because we want to make sure that you stay at JCHS and that finances and your financial distress don't make that problematic. And I think those are the only questions I identified about numbers. Okay, Michael, back to you. Michael, you're muted, but why don't you
I was
hold on?
looking at some people were chatting questions at me, so I was
Got it. So hold your thought, because I did realize I had one other thing about numbers to share. So, all right. So the thing about numbers is, you know that we surveyed you and we surveyed your students about your sense of readiness, your parental sense of your students' readiness to be familiar with and to practice good online social hygiene, right? And to be respectful of teachers and of other students. I just thought it was really interesting how the responses went. The responses overall were 96% of the students felt that they agreed or strongly agreed with the statement that they could do it and that they do it, practice good online hygiene, and 96 of the parents said their students practice either strongly or strongly agree with the statement their students practice good online hygiene. The difference is that students strongly agreed with the statement at about 55%. And parents strongly agreed with the statement about their students at about 75%. So I think it's going to be a good conversation to have with your student about, since they see it a little bit differently than you see it, and they see their own skills and their own ability to manage themselves online, they see it a little bit differently than it seems as if you as parents see it. So I think it's a great opportunity in this year when so much is happening online to have that kind of a conversation with your students. Okay, Michael.
Okay, there's a set of questions about how to keep students motivated in the online learning and what can parents do to help. So I'm going to ask that question, answer the question by saying that there's help coming, that our learning support team is putting together some resources for parents to help students. But I do think there are some basic things that you can do, which you may have already done at home, but I think you can help some students make sure they have a good workplace for themselves, that is a place where they can be focused, they can minimize their distractions. So for example, one of the things that we do at JCHS is when students come to the classroom, we ask them to put their cell phones in a parking lot that they don't have while they're sitting in class. This would be a great idea at home. You could have your students parking out their phone with you during class. I know that may sound crazy, but once you got over the initial shock, I think it might help students a lot to have fewer distractions around them while they're in class time. Another thing, really, it's important to take advantage of the resources that we have in the learning support department. We've, as part of preparing for this year, we have hired another full-time learning specialist. So we have more capacity in the learning support department than we've ever had. And students take advantage of this in different ways. It could be some students need to take advantage of those kind of resources when they have a big piece of work and they don't know how to move forward, and they need someone to help them make a schedule, or they need someone to help them just figure out how to get started. For some students, it's helpful to have maybe every other week they have a meeting with the learning specialist who checks in with them, makes a schedule, sees how it's going, makes sure they're pointed in the right direction. But whether your student needs it all the time or not, the learning support team is a great resource, and it's a great having your student reach out to them, or for you to reach out to them to make sure you have a connection there so that when they need it, they have a relationship going, can be a really great strategy. And someone had asked a question about grading, and I'm happy to talk more about next as it comes back around to me about the grading, but I'm not sure what people want to know about the grading. So happy to talk about it, but just would love to know what you'd like to know more about. And then I can come back around to that in my next answer.
All right. And okay. And then there was a question about Fridays. So since I spoke about Fridays, I'll chime in on that. Can you clarify regarding Fridays, will there be any classes or just independent work? Classes are not meeting on Friday. Your group of 9th grade parents, there are some second quarter AP classes that will have some additional class meetings on Friday because of the timing of the AP exam. And when we moved to staggered quarters, we want to make sure that students who are in certain quarter two science classes don't miss out the opportunity to be prepared for the AP exam. But other than that, classes don't meet on Fridays. On the other hand, things that normally would have happened during a typical school week have been shifted to Fridays. So our all school assemblies and gatherings, which we used to do on Monday and on Thursday, are great opportunity for students to meet with the faculty during lunch, before lunch, after lunch. We've shifted that with office hours to Friday so there can be a dependable, reliable time that students know they can find their teacher when they need to. And they just have to sign up for an appointment in order to do that using Google Calendar. It's a great feature. It maybe isn't quite as easy as walking over to a table in the Commons and asking a faculty member if you can meet in a half an hour, but it's a really simple system. So Friday is dedicated to these types of things.
Also, on Friday,
yeah.
the clubs, there'll be space for clubs to meet on Friday as well. And
Thanks.
one of the things, yes, and it is a time for students to do their work. Yeah.
Right. So I think that answers that question. And then the other thing I wanted to, no, I think that's what I wanted to pick up on. So Michelle, why don't you go with one more round, and then Michael, and then I'll wrap up.
Yeah, my last set of questions I think have been addressed. They've really been about how will my student get individual help. And as Michael just said, there will be time on Fridays to make appointments with teachers. One thing as well, that in my role as a 9th grade dean, I am in touch regularly with all of the 9th grade teachers. And so if a teacher does have any concerns about a student, maybe if homework is missing or really anything about what's going on in the classroom, I'm privy to that, and I reach out to the parent, to the student, and sometimes actually to you as well as the parent or guardian. So we do have a lot of ways to check in with kids, and there are a number of avenues for the students themselves to reach out for help, either to Yael Krieger and David Neufeld, who are our learning support, or to their teacher directly, or to me. And then, as long as I have the mic, I do want to say that I'm very much here for you as well as the parents and guardians of the 9th graders. So if you do have any questions or concerns about anything that's going on with your student, it doesn't matter how big the question is or how small the question is, I'm a great place to start. If you email me, we could either navigate the question over email, or we can find a time to Zoom. But anything that's going on, and even if you're not sure who to address the question to, again, I'm a good place to start. If I don't know the answer, I will certainly know who can answer your question. So I really do encourage you to reach out to us and to me specifically if something is going on with your kid, or you just have a question about how things are going in general, or about your student specifically.
Great, thank you, Michelle. Michael?
Yeah, so the question was about grading and whether it be the same as we're on campus. I guess my answer to that is it will be the same, in that we are going, even though I did say at the end of last year we went to a pass, no pass, high pass system, we are returning to giving letter grades starting with this school year. So in that sense, it will be sort of back to normal. The way the grades work at JCHS is it'll be slightly different than normal because the timing of the classes is different, but you will get, over the course of the year, you'll get progress reports throughout the year that will have grades on them. The only grade that goes on a student's transcript is the very final grade at the end of a class. So all the grades you get along the way are just sort of status check-in grades. And then either at the end of Q3 or the end of Q4, when the classes finish, that is the grade that will go on the student transcript. So in that sense, those systems will be back to normal as they were before we went to distance learning last spring.
Great, thank you, Michael. And I just want to highlight as we wrap up, one of the things that both Michael and Michelle talked about, which is the relationships that your students can develop with Michelle as the class dean and their advisor in 9th grade, with Julie Beck, Ms. Beck, the school counselor, with Yael Krieger, our director of teaching and learning, and with Dr. David Neufeld, our director of learning support. because they're the core team that works also with all ninth grade students in the skills of freshman seminar. And one of the reasons we do that is so that you don't have to wait and your student doesn't have to wait to have a problem before they start to develop a relationship with any one of these people who can be so vital to their navigating both the entry and the successful navigation of the ninth grade year at any school. It's been a really important feature of the school, as Michelle said, for over 10 years to make sure that those relationships begin early, so that there's nobody is stigmatized going to the school counselor or having a conversation with a school counselor or with the director of learning support. Everybody has these relationships, which is really the point I want to wrap up with, and just scroll back a little bit to last week's Torah portion, AK, that described in a couple of passages the manna that fell from the skies and nourished the ancient Israelites in their wilderness wanderings. And in the Talmud, there's this classroom conversation. And the students of Shimon Bar Yochai asked him, well, why was it that the manna fell every day? You know, it fell 6 days a week, didn't fall on Shabbat. They collected a double portion on Friday to prepare for Shabbat. So they knew that it could be preserved because they didn't get it every day. They collected twice on the sixth day. So why did it happen every day? Why didn't it happen like once a year or once a quarter? Why did the manna fall every day? And Shimon Bar Yochai said, well, the reason that it fell every day is that the most important thing, that the manna provided lots of nourishment. That's true. But the most important thing was that it was evidence of a connected relationship between the people Israel and the source of the manna, the eternal. So everything about JCHS is about the regularity, the deepness, and the connection of the relationships that our students have with each other, our students have with our educators, and that we as an adult community within the school have with you. And so we're going to be leaning on those relationships all during this most remarkable, never before experienced school year. And we're going to ask you to do the same and to not hesitate to let us know when you have a question and give us an opportunity to address it. If you have a concern, giving us an opportunity to support you and your student, and know that we care so deeply about the relationships that we have with you and with your students. Thank you for your time this evening. This obviously is not the end of any conversation that we're going to have about the school year or about your students. And feel free, as I said at the top, to reach out to any one of the three of us with any questions that you have. And we very much look forward to meeting your students again, as we've been meeting them all throughout the summer, but meeting them again as a whole class online next Tuesday. Wow, that's so exciting. All right, everybody, have a great rest of your late afternoon and evening, and take care.